Hello and welcome to Page One, the Writers Podcast. I'm Marco.
I'm Tarek.
And wait, Tarek, who's this?
Oh, it's Timmy. I've been released from the cupboard of dispatching Page Ones for a special appearance on the Page One podcast.
Tim is, you may have heard if you've listened to the podcast before, we have referred to the boss in quotes, and Tim is that man.
Or legend.
The
myth.
I don't think we've called you legend.
The man, the legend.
I obviously haven't listened to all of them yet.
Tarek, this is one of a special series of episodes we've recorded at the Fringe with comedians to find out about their writing process for their stand-up shows. And we recorded these at a variety of venues across Edinburgh. So the sound quality does vary at times. We sometimes recorded them at the venues themselves. But Tarek wasn't able to make all of the interviews. So Tim kindly agreed to step in.
Interviewer extraordinaire.
Yes, and I think, Tarek, you're out of a job.
I've been waiting 112 episodes for this day. I'm finally free.
Well, you've not heard my ones yet, so we'll see how that goes.
We'll see how it goes with the listeners. But yeah, so we will get straight into these special episodes. We're releasing at least one a day this week. They're very short episodes, but hopefully very interesting and funny, of course. And we'll play a quick advert for our writer's notebook, and then we'll get straight into the interview.
But for now, on with the podcast.
See you later.
The blank page. To some, it's terrifying, an obstacle to overcome. But we prefer to think of it as an opportunity, a blank canvas to be filled with all of the adventures and characters in our head. So how to overcome that fear? Well, we all know the best advice for a writer is write. Seriously, get words on the page and more will follow.
But what about later, when you start trying to pull those threads of what you've written together? What about the character you wrote about way back at the start? Who was she again? What was she carrying? And where did she leave the MacGuffin that she now really needs in the third act? Think about all those top thrillers you like to read, or that amazing drama you just watched. What did they all have in common? Structure and planning.
As aspiring writers ourselves, we've tried many different methods to try and organise all the thoughts about the stories we want to tell. We've been there searching for a piece of scrap paper to note something down, or making a quick note on our phone in between meetings.
Or sometimes we'll make a note in whatever notebook we're carrying, or a document on our laptop so we don't forget that great idea. Let's be honest, it can all be a bit messy, and it's easy to lose track of everything. And that's when we realised it's not just a story that needs structure and planning, but the way we gather all of our thoughts about it as well.
And so we made Page One. Page One is more than just another notebook. It's a place to put down all your ideas for your latest project, divided into easy-to-use sections that will help you plan your story, so that when that blank page comes calling, you're ready to answer. And then afterwards, once it's written, we realised you need to plan how to let people read it, so we included a section relating to submissions.
Each one is designed for one project, whether you want to write a book, screenplay, a comic, or any other kind of story. We truly believe that when you use it, it will help you get to the main event, writing your story. So we hope this helps.
We can't wait to read what you come up with.
And remember, every story starts with Page One.
Hi and welcome to this special episode of Page One, the Writers Podcast at the Fringe. I'm Marco.
I'm Tarek.
And today we're joined by Tessa Coates.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming on to the podcast. So, when we have authors and stuff on the podcast, I always ask, did you always want to be a writer? And I know you're a comedian, but you've also done other writing. Was writing always something that was of interest to you?
Absolutely, I think. And firstly, may I say, you've got the most beautiful children's storybook voice I've ever heard. It's so calming. I feel immediately at ease.
Excellent.
And was that in the corner of a bar, and I feel, a gorgeous calm. I think so. I always wanted to be a writer. When I was about 4, I asked for a typewriter for Christmas, and I had this little children's typewriter. And I used to constantly write books. This is in the day when you could like whack out a book in an afternoon, bind it, publish it, illustrate it, done. Soft launch to your dad, done. A couple of extracts by tea time. Like it's
blurb from your mum.
Yeah, blurb, perfect. And another sensational book. So I love to write. I really love to write, and all the the sort of, as I think is the case for like most women writers, is like the sort of Jo March, the Matildas, all of these sort of literary characters that you're like, yes, there I am. So I always wanted to be a writer. And I knew I wanted to be a writer. I did always want to be a comedian, but I didn't actually know it. I just thought laughter was extraordinary. Like even as a child, God, what a pretentious thing to say. Laughter was extraordinary. So I just heard myself from above. But I just always thought laughter was amazing. Like I remember being like, oh, okay, like if you say the right words in the right order, the grown-ups will laugh. Yeah. Like that to me was just like alchemy. And I couldn't believe it you could do that. And so I always was obsessed with being like asking grown-ups to tell me a joke, to which they were, when I was about 5 or 6, to which they were always like, even I wouldn't know how to say I know a joke. It's so hard if you're asked for a joke on the spot. Yeah. But they'd always say like they're all too rude, and I'd be like, go on, tell me a rude one. And then but then I would also. I was always being like, I'd love the rude cards in the card shops, and I would like sort of go and then I would try and repeat the things I'd seen on like rude cards, and like. Okay, this is crazy, but like when I was about 7, I'd seen this card that said, why can't women drive? Or why can't women park? Okay, and then when you opened it, it was a picture of a person like holding up their fingers and making a very small amount of space. And it said, because they think this is 6 inches. Okay? So I'm holding up my forefinger and my thumb for everyone watching at home, and making this amount of space. And I was like, okay, Julie, log it. I had no idea what that meant. And then... large group of family members, adults, all these people, somebody's making a joke about how, so-and-so's wife can't drive. Somebody goes, oh my God, like, why can't women park? And I go, because I think that's 6 inches. We're rightly like, what? And I didn't really get a laugh, it just got sort of horrified silence. And I bet I probably like intonated it in the wrong way as well, because like, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what part of the sentence was funny. I remember going, it's like, out, so I just loved it. I always loved it. But I wasn't ever saying I wanted to be a comedian. It's more just I was obsessed with jokes and things.
Yeah. Humor is funny like that, though, because I remember we've had a conversation before about Mrs. Doubtfire and how I loved that film. And I watched it as a kid, and there's jokes about like vibrators in it, which went right over my head.
Oh,
I remember laughing at it. Yeah, right. So
have you seen the same Mrs. Doubtfire?
Yeah, it's the sexy Doubtfire. It's so there's a line in it where Mrs. Doubtfire's talking to Pierce Brosnan, and she's trying to put him off, and he says, "Oh, she keeps a power tool in the bedroom."
Oh yeah.
And as a kid, I remember laughing at that. I don't understand what it meant, but I got
like a drill or something.
Yeah.
You're like,
why it'd be funny, but she's got a drill.
Of course, yeah. She keeps a power tool in the bedroom. Yeah, I remember now.
Kids and humour is a weird thing. You can go over your head, but you know it's meant to be funny, and you laugh at it because you're meant to laugh at it almost.
Yeah.
It's weird.
And also you'll laugh because if the adults are laughing.
They're laughing.
Yeah, you just love that they're laughing, and now you're laughing. It still, absolutely.
So you loved writing so much, you went to anthropology at university.
That's correct, yes.
So, logical.
That's absolutely logical. I think it's because it never really occurred to me that was like a natural... I'm not very good at sort of forward thinking, and I didn't ever think to go to university for a career. I just was more like, well, this is just carrying on education, and so it wasn't ever like, and what job will I have at the end of this? Yeah. Which is why I spent most of my 20s post-graduation being like, and now what? Because I hadn't like planned up until this moment. Now, anthropology just sounded like the funnest possible of the options, and I didn't really know what it was, and English felt like a bit of a drag, like I liked reading too much. I didn't want to write these like intense essays about it. Whereas anthropology was about like monkeys and evolution and really cool stuff, and also about a lot of very boring stuff. But I don't know, it really appealed to me. Yeah.
And what was the path from anthropology to stand up then?
The path from anthropology to stand-up goes from me leaving... So I did the university sketch comedy group. So I went to Durham. I did the Durham Review, and who are very much like, the Cambridge Footlights, the Oxford Review, except the very dismissed younger cousin. Like nobody thinks we're prestigious, and we certainly haven't got any alumni. And so I did the Durham Review, and even then, people were like, "I think you should do comedy." I was like, "Absolutely not! Like that's not a career. That's not a thing. Like." you can't do a job. And then started doing my sketch group, which is called Massive Dad. There were 2 girls who were in the year above me in the drama review. And we'd never worked together before, but we all had like sort of 2 years post-graduation of being like, well, we're very sad. I was a runner on a film set, and I worked in PR. I did all these sort of like creative adjacent jobs. Being like, well, that's the job. Like, that's what if you're doing a job, you'd have to be serious and do it properly. You know, you can't be doing this fun bit. And then Krisha and I would be a runner on these film sets where I was like, I don't think that, I was like, and I kept, at one point I was like, I think if you say that line the other way round, it will get a laugh. I didn't say anything, obviously I didn't say anything. Imagine the runner being like, sorry, can I just suggest some ideas? But like slowly my sort of confidence of being like, I don't know if everybody is as good as, just because I'm the youngest and the most junior doesn't necessarily mean I'm the worst here. Like, I'm being like, oh, okay, and especially like men, like maybe there are these men who are like, have risen to these very powerful roles, you know, and I'm not actually sure they're that good. And then we started doing comedy, and then we came to the Edinburgh Fringe 3 times, and even then people were like, would you ever do stand-up? And I was like, never, absolutely never. And then the year that we decided we weren't going, I was just suddenly like, I think I've got to do this. And it's felt like I remember sitting in the Pleasance Courtyard, and I was like, oh my God, I've got to do it. I'm coming next year, and I'm going to do a solo show. Yeah.
And was it, you know, we've asked other guests about this as well, but did you have that fear that I imagine a lot of people have before the first stand-up routine? Even though you'd done the review stuff, that was with other people, I suppose.
Absolutely. I went to, it doesn't exist anymore, but I didn't tell anyone I was going, and I went to a show called Comedy Virgins in Stockwell in London. On a Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday night, anyone could go, and it was a bringer night. You had to say you had to bring somebody, and you could do 5 minutes. And I didn't have anyone to bring, so I didn't want to tell anyone I was doing it. And they were like, "You brought someone?" I was like, yeah. And I just pointed to like another man. I was like, he's with me. And they were like, okay. And they let me in, and I remember I'd come and done this impression. I got this character, because I was like, I still wanted to really like hide behind a character. And my character was me, but I was 85, and it was set in the future. And it was about like, I was trying to make this sort of very political point about like, you know, we're really cross with elderly people now because they don't have as progressive views as we do, but in the future, you know, all our grandchildren will sort of be having sex with their robots in the living room or whatever, and we'll think like, actually, that's actually not great. We're trying to have dinner, and they'll be like, Grandma, like, be more progressive or whatever. And so that was like, again, it was like so convoluted and weird and not funny. And but then in the middle of it, and no one was really laughing, and then in the middle, something got up on this sort of like light fitting, fell down. I remember I reacted to it like in character, and I did this whole bit, and everyone was really laughing, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe it's more this, and I'm a bit more present, and maybe I'm not doing this weird character. It's me, but 85, you know, like maybe it's that. And but no, the fear was enormous. Like, I remember I was violently sick in the toilets before, and I wanted to leave. And even the whole day, because I worked at Sainsbury's magazine at the time, and the whole day everyone kept being like, "Are you going to write that article about broad beans?" As I was just like Vietnam, staring like out the window, like shaking and being like, "It's 7 hours till the show, 6 hours till the show," you know.
Yeah.
Whereas now I'd be like, you know, the more experience you have, the more you just take things in your stride. And
well, what's your writing style like then? So do you know? I mean, do you approach it? Your stuff is in like, I've got a theme I want to talk about, or do you look at it first from the gag or the punchline and build it on that? How do you approach it?
So my very first show was called Primates, and Primates was absolutely based on my degree, this anthropology degree, and it was basically just facts from my 3 years at university that I thought were amazing, and things I told people at parties in the kitchen, you know, and so I basically honed my storytelling, you know, and just telling it to people. And then I was, and so it felt like it was all really there. And I remember so February I go to this Stockwell comedy gig, do 5 minutes. Then March I say to Berk's Nest, who are this incredible production company, I want to do a show this year. Do you want to produce me? And they were like, this year? And they were like, have you done it? And I was like, yeah, I've done 5 minutes at Comedy Virgins. I think
I did 6 inches gag as a kid.
I've got that absolute banger in the pocket, so that's ready to go. I need to fill 58 more minutes. And people will be laughing so much about that. The parking joke, we don't need anything else. And you know, they were like, what if you don't go this year? What if you split a half hour on the Free Fringe? Or, you know, I was like, I'm ready. And also it turns out I've got ADHD, so I'm extremely impulsive. And I make but I was like, no, I feel I can do it. And I was right. Like it felt like I know it felt very short amount of time, but I had been doing comedy a long time.
Yeah.
I had sat in the back of endless mixed build gigs in which I had seen people make sort of stand-up mistakes. I was like, oh, you don't know why we don't like that and it's not for the reason you think, and like don't be cross with the audience and don't do this, and like I really was very clear about what it was I wanted to do, and then the stuff was just it was all the stuff I was in my head and had been sort of my whole life, and then my second show much harder, because as with everyone doing a debut, something like you've been working on that for however many years, even if you haven't actually been working, you've been thinking about it, whereas your next one you finish and then people are like, right, off you go then. Again, and in 11 months you've got to do a totally new one, and you're like, oh no. So again, that one, the first one was about evolution and why we fall in love with bad men, basically. That was very much based on me and a series of bad men, and or me making sort of reckless love choices. So it was like the theme was really strong and really there. And the second one was about, again, then I felt like a bit more sort of corralled into being like, okay, I've got to have this a big point, and I've got to do all this stuff. And it became about gender politics. But actually, when I sort of stepped away from it a bit, I was like, maybe it could just be a bit more funny, than having to make a point. I think if you feel very strongly about something, then that's an amazing place to start. But if you feel you have to make a point, you're going to make a bad show. If you try and retrofit something into it. Like this year, the show's called Tessa Coates, Get Your Tessa Coates You've Pulled. And it's just a stupid show. It's just a series of stories and nothing. It doesn't have a theme. It doesn't have a point. And it's definitely the funnest show I've ever made. Like I'm not like proud of it and like, wow, what a great piece. But I'm like, oh, this is objectively the funniest, And it's because I didn't try to be like, what's my point? What's my thesis? If that's natural, then amazing. But if it's not, don't worry about it.
And what you were saying there about the, comedy writing, I suppose, is different from other forms of writing in that it's not just the words themselves and the order of the words, but it's also how you say it, how you deliver it, and the timing and all of this sort of stuff. Oh my God. And is that something that comes naturally? Is that something that you work on, that you deliver one way one show and then say, right, that didn't quite land there, I'll change it a bit?
Definitely, yes. I try as much as I can not to get too in my head about the delivery of something, because I think once you're panicking about that, it's going to come out wrong. So the more that you can sort of stay present with it and like be in the moment, but like there is one joke in my show that relies on a particular tonal delivery, and for like the 2 minutes coming up to it, I'm thinking, here it comes, here it comes, here it comes. You've got to say blah, 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 blah. You've got to pronounce it and just like inflect it in a very particular way, and it makes me very panicked. So I think, but no, absolutely, it's amazing, and this is why I like love going to see like work in progresses and people work on stuff, because I'm like, you worked out that joke needed to, even though the material was all there and the stuff was all there, it needed to be slightly different, and that's the thing. Like, it's the maths of comedy is sort of amazing, that like just tiny things being out is what's going to cause that to either get a massive laugh or no laugh. And I think it's incredible.
And writing stand-up seems like a very different experience to writing like authors we've talked to in the past. It's a very solitary experience of sitting in a room by themselves in their own head, bang it out, and then they send the book off, and that's their thing done. Whereas it seems stand-up, way more than even script writing, it's a collaboration or not collaboration, but you're testing stuff, you're trying it, you're watching it, you're refining it, you're working on it continuously with other people in a group environment almost.
Yeah. It's 100% a group environment. Stand-up is absolutely being in sketch comedy, but the other half of the sketch group don't have any ideas. They you need to be doing it. And that's the thing about stand-up, is like, you think, oh, this is good, and you think about it on the bus, and then you go there and you try it out, and the people tell you if it is or is not a joke. It's amazing. And then, so my very first show, Primates, got picked up, and this sounds like a joke, but isn't a joke. Like, it got picked up by the Disney Channel. So it was bought by ABC, and they asked me to make it into a pilot as an American sitcom, which is something like so preposterously out of my league at the time, and like out of my depth. Yeah. I'd never been for television. Like, I couldn't do any of these things. Like, Fleabag had just sort of taken off, so they were very much like, "Are you British? Do you want to have a go?" Like, they were just like, "Yeah, have a. Why not?" And I truly went mad, because I'd never been on my own like that before. Like, I did stand up on my own, of course, but like that's with the audience. Yeah. So I'd never just like been in a room, and I didn't know how to write television. I was sort of buying all these, sitting on the floor of the library, reading all these books, trying to do this, like, okay, A plot, B plot, C plot. Whereas I love live comedy. Like, I love the magic of being in the room. Like, I love when if like, to me, a glass falls over and we're all present for a thing that only can happen once. Yeah. A dream, So like, I really love other people, and so to be alone in a room with the words, I was like, I'm going out of my mind here. And then the first time I sort of heard it read aloud, I almost burst into tears because I was like, oh my god, okay, there are jokes in here, and there are people.
But also, it's you're then writing something which you're then watching someone else read, right?
Yeah.
So it's like so not only have you written it in the way that you would say it, but then you're watching someone else read your words and maybe get the intonation wrong or the punchline, the delivery wrong, and that it must be difficult.
Yeah, it is. It definitely. I mean, it's not. I don't know if it's difficult so much. I think it's a real it's very cool. To me, it was an amazing thing. I had my pilot read aloud, and I had in it it's set in a university, and I had these 2 white laboratory mice who had their whole own plot. And so there was, which ABC really did not care for. They kept being like, "Could we lose the mice?" And I was like, "Absolutely not. The mice are staying." So these mice stay in this cage, and they can talk, and they talk to each other. The humans can't,
Yeah.
And they just sort of talk about stuff, and they're called Freud and Levi Strauss. So they're named after scientists, and they sort of are very, very smart mice, and they talk, but they're laboratory mice, so they're, and they make all these sort of references. But to me, they were old American men. And at one point they have a tea light candle, and they have those miniature marshmallows on a cocktail stick, and they do all sort of adorable miniature the borrowers stuff, just lovely. So to me they were these old American men scientists, and I hadn't written anything about them I just called them by their names, had all their stuff. And then when we read the pilot, the 2 people who were reading the mice read them as Germans, because of course Freud and Levi Strauss were, and so I was like, oh my god, and read them in these European accents, and I remember being like, I didn't mind, I was like, oh, adorable, and why not? And I was like, okay, how amazing that people can take your work and interpret it in however way they would. It was really exciting for me, and I was such a shock, and I was like, of course you think Freud you're going to read Freud the Mouse in a European accent. Yeah, that's so interesting to me. And so it's but definitely I would, if you felt more precious about the stuff, I think that must be very overwhelming for people. To me, I think it's still too exciting and too much of a privilege and too cool to be hung up about it. But definitely, I know if you'd if I'm sure other authors who have lived with their characters for a very long time, and then they see the film adaptation, and they're like, that's not him. That's not who he's supposed to be.
It's funny when we speak to authors who have film adaptations. They often say, right, that's a separate thing, and they almost kind of in their head cut themselves off from it. It's almost like they're setting themselves up for disappointment. They're saying, right, the book is the book, and that's mine, and I'm happy with that, and that's on the shelf, and someone can always come back to the book, and the film is the film, and it's a separate thing entirely.
And it has to play to the strengths of the medium that it's in. It's not going to work. It has to be changed. Adapted.
I think where on previous guests that we've had on, where the pain has come is where they kind of try and stay involved, but they want it to hew too close to the book. And obviously it can, and it can cause some confusion there, I think. So,
I mean, am I right to say that you are now working on a show with Greg Daniels of US Office Arts and Rec?
That is the one. That is the Mice Show. So
this is the Mice Show.
That's the Mice Show.
Okay, awesome.
That's the Mice Show. So Greg was my absolute champion vis-a-vis the mice. We'd had these conference calls, and ABC were like, we need to lose the mice, and Greg was like, to his real credit, Greg was like, you bought her because of her voice and her point of view, and you thought she was interesting, and she is giving you her voice and her point of view and things that are interesting, and you are repeatedly taking them away from her. I remember being like, woo! But also he didn't care for network television, so he was, and he's very rich, so he could say whatever he wants. So this was the show, and it was in a really amazing, but completely, because I was so out of my depth, and I was so underconfident in everything. I just felt like I was just hurtling along on a roller coaster, being like, okay, I guess we're doing this now. And then it was sold from ABC to Quibi. Again, the whole thing just feels insane. So they didn't ask me; they just were like, you live with Quibi now. Yeah. And I was like, and what is Quibi? And then Quibi, if anyone listening knows, is this a fantastic streaming platform that was on your phone and was designed to be in quick bites.
Yeah.
And
Spielberg was a big fan of it, wasn't he?
Lots of people were a big fan because the founder had $10 billion. So a lot of people said they were a fan of the idea. We were all like, oh, this is a cash cow that we'll ride for as long as possible. So it launched in March 2020, about a week after global lockdown. And its whole thing was if you're on the tube, if you're on your way to work, if you're doing this. And everyone was like, should we rethink this? We're like, we've got $10 billion. We're plowing ahead. So I, all through lockdown, I rewrote all of 2020, I rewrote the pilot as a full series, and I wrote 21 episodes. Admittedly, they were only 10 minutes long, but they were quick bites. But it was the pilot writing had been so intense and had happened so fast. Like in October they bought it, and in January I had to turn the pilot in. But I'd never written for television before. I didn't know what a cold open was. I didn't know what a tag was. I didn't know what anything was. And I just kept being like, oh my God. I had such bad imposter syndrome. And then by the time we got to Quibi, I was like, okay, I think I can do this actually. And I just really knuckled down, and I wrote this whole series. And I remember being like, and no one's really read it because it got handed into Quibi. Quibi greenlit it, and then Quibi went bankrupt. So that was my Quibi journey. But it was like, I'm really, really proud of that series.
And what a great learning experience.
The learning experience is unreal.
People,
with these incredible people, and people who are quite mad, the people who are amazing, all this sort of smorgasbord. And like, one American woman produced one. I was like, I can't do this. Like, I'm not as good as you think I am. Like, please, why have you bought me? She sort of held me by the shoulders, and she was like, mediocre white men get given this opportunity every day, and when it comes to them, they say, yes, this is my time. And you are 1,000 times more talented than them. And so you have to say, this is my time. And I was like, okay, this is my time. And it's really something I've taken, if nothing else, like what a thing to take forward, to be like, don't say, oh, I can't do it when the opportunity comes. Be like, even when you're like, I can't do this, be like, I can do this. Here I go. And then style it out and work it out and hope that you make it so far that by the time people realize you can't do it, you're in too deep.
Jets cash.
Jets cash, baby. We're making the film.
Quibi's going. Does that mean that it can't be made ever? Or is it?
Initially, yes, and we've just very soon we will come to the the rights of it returned to me.
Okay.
So I think it was such an insane process, the whole of this writing experience, that when Quibi went under, having had it greenlit and being like, we're going to production, this is the press release, we're about to announce it, like all of this, and then to be like, it's gone under. I had a pina colada in a can and had a real and a bit of a cry, and then I was like, okay, actually I've been on this experience for such a long time. Maybe it's okay to sort of put this down for a bit. And I sort of locked it in a drawer, and I truly haven't read it since then. And I'm excited to go back and be like, oh, some of this is quite crap. Or to be like, oh, okay, there's some good stuff here. And what I'd really like to do, because it's written for an American audience and set in an American university. And what I'd like to do is repurpose it and make it as a British show. Because I think it's still really, I think it's got really fun ideas in there. It's got some mice, for God's sake.
Yeah, totally, yeah. I'd watch that.
Right? For the mice alone.
just the mice, yeah.
And so, obviously, you're here at the Fringe. Do you want to tell us a bit about your show?
Sure. It's Tessa Coates. Get your Tessa Coates You've Pulled. It's at 6 p.m. in the Beside every day, and lost a lot of confidence with the title because I didn't want people to think it was going to be raunchy. I just very well people think it's going to be a sexy show. But it's been we're on day 3 now, and it's been today was just like what a dream. It was a really lovely crowd, and today was the first day I was like, okay, I think this is a show.
Yeah.
That's the sort of the Fringe roller coaster. Is one day you're like, I'm a genius, and then you're like, I'm the worst person that's ever lived. So,
how do you pick yourself up? As because it must happen to every comedian that sometimes you just have a terrible night. The audience doesn't buy it. I mean,
I think you just work. When I'm doing my own, or even when I'm on stage, like if it starts badly, and I think, okay, you hang in there, and we're gonna have you by the end, and I do always manage to get them by the end. But sometimes you just have to be like, okay, everyone's having their own weird day. People have come in cross, like you never know what's going on with people, and then just sort of try your hardest. And also I remember Al Roberts in Sheeps once was saying to me that you do a gig and you do your absolute solid gold banger sketch or whatever. You're like, this is the line, absolutely kills, and if that doesn't go well, you sort of use that as the marker of what the capacity for laughter in this space is. And then if you don't, sort of judge anything else you're doing against it, because you're like, well, we've hit the back. If that's what the banger is capable of, let's not beat ourselves up. And so it's so you sort of use your banger as the canary down the mine to sort of check if there is gas, or just be like, It's but the thing is, even if you're like, okay, there's gas, you're still contractually obliged to stay in the gas, until the end of your time. Even though
you don't expect people to be alive at the end of the
Exactly. You sort of have to just be like, okay, that's where the bar is, and you can try your best to get them over this bar, but you mustn't beat yourself up, and just to be that's the thing of comedy, like, who's this? And all this thing we're talking about, like, context and the alchemy of it, and, like, it's so mad, like, ethereal to hold on to. Like, you don't know what people have been up to today, and, you know, whether they want to laugh. And we've all been to shows where you're like, this is objectively very good, but I'm so tired.
No,
And I had a potato and I might be sick at any time, you know?
And for people who are breaking in now, who are listening, what kind of advice would you have for someone who's starting to go into the stand-up?
To go into stand-up?
Yeah.
I think if you want to go into stand-up, I would say, like, wherever you live, find your local sort of mixed bill or, like, beginner's night or, you know, whatever, of, like, people just trying it out for the first time. And if there isn't one, start one. Like, every pub has got a room above it. Like, just start a comedy night. And just go out and watch as much comedy as you can. And not the, like, people at the O2. Like, go and watch it in a pub and see how low the bar is. Like, see what people are doing. You know, see this, like, really... You know, so the first time I ever did it... Well, the first time we ever did a Massive Dad sketch, we found like the weirdest night we possibly could, and we went there, and just because we were like, we didn't want anyone to know we were doing it, we went way out of town, and the woman on before us got these huge bunch of carrots out and then played them like a violin, and I remember being like, God bless you, and why not, you know? And then
What a great act to follow.
right?
That's
And I
perfect.
remember just being like, yeah, okay, everyone's just a weird old freak who thinks they want to do some jokes, you know? Like, just like, if you, you know, my grandma, when I said, I used to have this joke in the beginning of my show, my very first show, that I said to my grandma I wanted to do a stand-up show, and she said, you know, who's going to write it? And I said, I'm going to write it, Grandma. And she goes, oh, you'll be ever so sad when nobody comes. And that's really how, and I was like, thank you, Grandma. And, but like, it's really how she felt. She was so worried for me, because to her, a stand-up was like Miranda Hart, you know, playing the O2. So she was like, but what do you mean you're going to do stand-up? But if you are just like, stand-up is to 7 people above a pub, and maybe in 10 minutes you get one laugh, then you're like, okay, that's something people can do. And I think it's just like, take all your assumptions about what you can achieve and what you are, like, off your shoulders, and just keep doing it. And like, oh my, nothing is as valuable as experience. And just like, because you could write in your room for a year, and nothing will be as useful as going up tonight and just trying it out. Like, you'll never understand what live is like. And don't judge yourself against anybody else, of your peers or who you want to be. And also, like, keep working until you find what your particular, I'm going to use a wanky expression, which is spark, but like, find the thing about you that is unique, because, and everyone starts off just like doing an impression basically of their famous favorite comedian, and like whether that's like Eddie Izzard or Victoria or like whatever, you're like, oh, they did these cool characters, or they did this, and so I'm going to do that. And then somewhere along the way, someone will be like, oh wow, when you started talking about your like passion for Greek pots, like, you really lit up, and we were really like with you, like, tell us more about that, because everyone is as we've established, a little freak, and if we can hear about your freak thing, or even if you're like, I haven't got a cool story or a cool dad or a cool, because some people have got like, you know, grew up in a cult and like, you know, or like, you know, fled the military or got lost at sea, or like, people have got cool stories, and you might think like, I haven't got one like that, but like, everyone's got their own cool thing about them, and if you can like tap into that and talk about it.
I think all creative stuff is similar to that, in the sense that you start off imitating people that you admire, that you like, and then it takes time to find your voice, and you kind of make your own little area and your own little kind of voice of it.
And also, I think what you were saying about, you know, getting out there is the same with writing fiction or something. You can spend ages thinking, oh, I've got to plan it perfectly and all this.
Yeah, no one can see it till it's
exactly. You've got to just try and do it and then see what the reaction is.
I think it's like, if you've said at a party more than 3 times, or over the course of, you know, the year, if you hit the 3-person mark where you've said, I'm going to write a book, or I'm going to do stand-up, or I'm going to do this, looks like you got to do it. Stop, otherwise you become a bitter old soul, you know? And it's so easy to be like, I could do that. It's like, yeah, you probably could. It's so easy to say you could do it, and so hard to actually try.
So, for those listening, where and when is your show?
6 p.m, Pleasant Beside, in the Pleasance Courtyard. It might actually be 6:05, but get there early. Get in early.
It's all like 1:55, 6:05.
It's just with
that hour.
clear the room.
Maybe clear the room,
It is, but like, why not? It's not necessary, is it?
And the final show, best and worst heckle you've had in your career, apart from the 6 inches, obviously.
Apart from the what?
The 6 inches.
Best heckle. Oh my god! It's like asking, "What's your favorite?" Tell me a joke.
It's a horrible question, because like, your mind just goes blank.
People, I'm actually very lucky. I mean, touch wood. People don't like rudely heckle me.
More just to get people to
People chat to me quite a lot. I think because I set a very like casual and very conversational tone. People really just like, sometimes they'll be like, yeah, and I'll be like, what? And they're like, yeah, I know. And you're like, okay, fantastic. You know. But like once I was doing some joke about Neil Young, and they were like really chatting on the front row, and I was like, what's happening here, kids? And they was like, I'm just telling her about Neil Young. And I was like, well, if you're quiet, I'll tell you about Neil Young. You know?
That's my job.
I will do it. Or I had so like a really quite clever, but like a bit about Enid Blyton, and I sort of say, really quite clever, so obnoxious, but it's not clever at all. I just say that I sound like, I say like I don't make any dick jokes in the show, because I sound like I'm in an Enid Blyton adventure, and I sound like Anne in The Famous Five, and so if I made any dick jokes, they would be about my brother. Like this is my setup. So it's like, and then one man, really people were really laughing, and then this one man was like, what about Timmy? And I was like, what? And I was like, what do you mean, what about Timmy? He was like, Timmy the dog as well. And I was like,
right, Dick.
yeah, I was like, yeah, I mean, what do you want me to do? Like, name how I feel about all the invited characters. But then I was like, but do you see, like, Timmy isn't a colloquialism for penis. So you see what you've done isn't a joke. And people were really like, wow! And then, like, I don't know. And so, yeah, lucky I'm not, the worst ones aren't that bad. I think it's just, like, saying something. Oh my God, I said some story about how, like, Johnny Burrell from Razorlight had like claimed how many people he'd slept with, and I was like, well, yeah, we'd all sleep with Johnny Burrell, like, just for the story, you know. I was like, and then I said something like, you could be the most boring woman in the room, your name could be Carol, and you can work in HR. And if you told me you'd had sex with Johnny Burrell, I'd be like, let's get a drink, or something like that. Very early on in my, like, this is such an early gig, never did this material ever again. Also, I'd done this bit about a homophobic dolphin. I'm still doing weird characters at this point. I'm trying to make these like big political points through the media with these characters, and everyone's like, stop doing this. Like, this is so weird. I'd done this bit about Jesus. I'd done this bit about Jesus. I don't remember what it was. I've got PTSD from this. Anyway, I said, I made this joke about being called Carol. Woman on the front row was like, I'm called Carol, just like furious face. And she was like, and I work in HR. And I was like, oh no. And then I'd made this comment about it. It was very much not it was just, I'd said something about like, oh my God, it was about Palestine. But like, and then she was like, and I'm from Palestine. And I was like, and I'd done this whole bit about those, making this political point about Jesus. And I was like, you go what, sorry?
No, and she said, and I've got a dolphin.
I've got a dolphin, yeah, exactly. And I'm a dolphin, actually. And like, she just like, I had just weirdly accused her of everything.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'd been sassy about social anthropology, because mine is biological anthropology, and I'd said social anthropology is incredibly boring. All this like weird stuff. It's not a joke. It's just like a flippant and rude thing to say. And again, I don't like do any of this ever again. And this way, it's like you've got to keep going and trying your stuff out and be like, okay, never do that again. And she was like, and a social anthropologist, and she said, like, come to see you because I knew you were an anthropologist. And she was just, and the whole room was just like, like this. They were just like, everyone was like eating their hand, and I, you know, it wasn't as, just awful. It was just awful. So that was sort of me being like, maybe be less sassy, you know, and don't try and make these clever political. You're not a clever political pundit. You're really not. Just tell your dumb stories about what you did this afternoon, you know, like that's, and don't be mean don't try and, I think I was trying to still be high status, and this like dumb thing about finding your status is such a weird thing on stage, but like I was still playing it very high, and I think the sooner someone was like, just so you know, you're very low, like you're actually a very low status person, I was like, oh, am I? And they were like, yeah, and that really changed everything for me, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll just tell you all these dumb embarrassing stories, you know, that I've got up to, rather than trying to you know, be clever, and certainly don't be rude about poor Carol, you know, poor woman.
I think it's probably lying.
A lie?
Yes.
No, she just, you know, when someone's like quite serious, she wasn't gagging, she just was quite a serious woman, you know, very upset. Oh no.
Never saw a stand up again.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'm so sorry, Carol. And then Carol's a great name. So's HR. Well, great. Please do it. Please come to the show.
Carol's actually my mum. She's here.
And it's a wonderful name. Oh my God! Imagine if this whole thing was a very, very long con.
We did 12 years for her, bitch. Look at me today.
And here she is. Oh, Carol, I'm so sorry. Oh God, yeah. Anyway, so luckily no one's ever been horrible to me. Touch wood, but I have managed to upset people. I've been horrible to people. Unintentionally. I was just trying to be cool.
Well, thanks very much.
You're so welcome.
That
What an
was
absolute
awesome
pleasure
fun.
to come and talk to you. This is so nice.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that episode. If you did, be sure to hit that thumbs up button and hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode like these ones down here.
And if you want to get in touch, you can do so by finding us on our social media platforms up here, or drop us a comment way down below there.
But otherwise, thanks for listening and join us for the next episode.
See you later.